Just tell me about the Kimberly project.
Sure. Okay, so I'm the founder, Catherine Dunphy. I'm Kimberly's sister-in-law. So I founded the Kimberly Project because of what happened to Kimberly, but also what happened to women during the lockdown. Across the country, women were suffering, women's shelters were filling up because, it was a really horrible time for everybody, but mostly for women who were in abusive relationships. And so I knew that, there had to be a fix for this, right? Like, this can't just keep happening without there being a cause. And so then I started investigating. We did the first fundraiser here in Cobourg to raise funds for Kimberly's medical trust, so that she had resources when she came home from the hospital, which she greatly needed because she had to spend at least a month or so in rehab in Toronto after being in the hospital in Toronto for almost a month and a half. So I wanted to start the project because I want to know, how can we prevent this from happening to other women? Because it is preventable, right? Like, these are not personal crimes. Like, we'd like to think about the crimes against women like violence perpetrated in a domestic situation, for example, as a private matter, but it's not. It actually costs Canadians a lot of money every year. It's kind of staggering, and I didn't realize how much money we're forking over just to deal with the aftermath of violence against women. So if we look at, say, for example, domestic violence in Canada. So prior to COVID, the average numbers were about 7.2 billion a year, just dealing with the aftermath of domestic violence. Now, my experience during COVID with women, experiencing abuse also goes to my sister, Terry. She fled an abusive relationship during the height of COVID. And she was in a women's shelter in May. And then in July, Kimberly went missing, and they found her in a horrible state. And we nearly lost her because of violence targeted at women. And I think that as a country, we need to come up with a strategy, a plan, a prevention mechanism. And I have some really great programming that the Kimberly Project wants to bring to Canada to help prevent future violence against women. Because really what we're talking about here, it's really complicated. I'm sure you've been watching, the consultations and the details coming out of Nova Scotia. And the one thing that we've seen from that, and then also from the gentlemen who were running across Saskatchewan murdering people, in both these instances, we know that these men had mental health issues that were a kind of a holdover from childhood trauma. We know, we absolutely 100% know that violence and drug addiction and mental health issues that we encounter in our society, all of those things stem from negative childhood experiences or traumatic childhood experiences. And so if we know this, then we should be inoculating the next generation. We should be rearing children so that they understand their emotional landscape, because there's a disconnect, right? So there's lots of really unhealthy, maladaptive ways to cope with anxiety, stress, and depression. And you see that, for example, in the United States with school shootings or the, violent crime rates down there. You see that with the violence against women across Canada. You saw that in Nova Scotia. You see that in Saskatchewan. And I think that given the staggering amount of money that we're spending just dealing with the aftermath of these crises, we should be investing in preventing them. Like, if we had a cure for cancer, say, and we started implementing it, yes, there would be an upfront cost, but the long-term cost would greatly decrease. And so that's what this programming is about. It's mental health programming for children from the ages of 3 to 6, and we're also working on 7+. So the whole focus is to teach children what their emotional landscape is, to help them to regulate their emotions, to help them to be empathetic, to be focused on conflict resolution and peaceful outcomes, because that's what we need. And those are the kind of skills that kids are kind of starving for right now. We've just come out of the COVID lockdowns. The world is kind of trying to readjust and understand what direction or trajectory we were going to go in. And I think that now would be the time to invest in children and youth's mental health. And we are ready and willing to work with all levels of government to bring this programming in and implement it so that we can strengthen the resolve and the mental health of everyone in our country, so that we have less of this type of violence, which is incredibly disruptive, ripples through the entire community, and just creates a sense of fear and anxiety. I mean, I heard a lot of that with regards to women after what happened to Kimberly. A lot of people were like, I can't believe this happened in my neighborhood. I can't believe she just went out for a walk. So yeah, we want to bring in as many preventative measures as we can. We want to have an open, transparent discussion with the Canadian people about what is causing these issues, right? And work together so we can resolve them.
What's going on tomorrow?
Tomorrow, we are doing our first fundraiser. We just got our charitable status in June, and so I wanted to try to do a fundraiser on the anniversary of the date when Kimberly was found, but unfortunately we couldn't make it work just because of the short timing, and we had a lot of things ducks to get into a row. So tomorrow we're doing a pop-up yoga in 2 locations, one here in Cobourg at the Living Well Movement Center at 271 Spring Street, and that is being that session is being coordinated by Jenny Frankie and Trisha Summersby. So they're 2 instructors here at Living Well, and it's going to be a beautiful, meditative, peaceful yoga session to try to amplify peace and to, just get all on in the same space, right? And we're also having another event in Whitby. The event in Whitby will have a few speakers. Kimberly will be speaking. I believe Ryan Turnbull, the MP for Whitby, will also be in attendance. And maybe another individual might be coming. I just haven't received confirmation as of yet. So it will be another yoga class. It'll be Ilaria Ritchie, the lead director here at Living Well, will be running that yoga meditation in Whitby, and it'll be located at the Whitby Civic Park, which is behind Whitby Town Hall on Rosalind Road. So that event. We also have an online fundraiser going on right now. We got some really lovely donations from businesses in Durham. We got a big slew of wonderful prizes from Lululemon and from Lush and a few things from Sephora. So we've got some things for giveaways, and then if people are interested, they can go to our 32 auctions / the Kimberly Project to see the list of items that we have on offer. So we're hoping everybody will come out, because we really want to raise awareness that violence against women is preventable, that we should be investing in prevention strategies, and that those strategies are going to help make the world a safer and more peaceful place for everyone. And I think Canadians want that. Canadians like peace. That Canadians like things to be just, calm and tranquil and kind of quiet. We're not as flashy as our neighbors to the south. So we're excited to do this first fundraiser, and we'll be doing more. You'll be seeing us as often as I can get us in front of a camera or in front of a microphone. You'll be seeing us talking about this subject and what we can do to prevent violence against women.
What do you remember about what were you doing that day? You were just going out for a daily jog?
So I regularly go for walks. I've always done that for years. And at the time, on the evening of July 28th, I was working on my master's thesis defense. So basically I had written the massive paper and was preparing to defend it. So you have to present it. So I was always on technology, always on the computer, all the time. It gets a little bit overwhelming, as I'm sure most of us know, especially over the last 2 years. So I often went for walks just to decompress, just to disconnect from technology. And what's interesting is that night, I didn't take my phone with me. And I often did not take my phone with me because I wanted to disconnect from technology. I just wanted to be in nature. So anyways, that evening, I went for a walk, and it was the summer. It was still light out. I know a lot of people are like, why were you out walking at night? It wasn't dark. It was a summer evening, a nice summer evening. So I went on a walk and followed the same route that I always walked, pretty much about 4 or 5 kilometers. And, went through the neighborhood, passed by big box stores, schools, whatever. Then I walked by a patch of trees on Anderson. And I talk about this patch of trees a lot when I do keynote speaking, because I never paid any attention to this patch of trees before. It was on a busy residential road that hundreds of people pass by every day. So there was nothing unusual or out of the ordinary about it. But at that time, what I didn't realize is that I was being followed for my entire walk. And I was being followed by someone who kept a good distance behind me so that I didn't sense him. But as we approached that patch of trees, he sped up, and all I know is that I ended up in a creek bed. Now, how I ended up there, these are things that are before the court, so I'm not really allowed to talk about the details, but I ended up unconscious in the creek bed for 14 hours overnight while I was searched for.
And again, I remember, you were found?
I was found the next morning at about 10:30. Overnight, the police searched with the K9 unit, helicopter, in patrol cars. And then what happened was, on the morning of July 29th at 6 a.m., a new crew of police officers started their shift, and they were all given a map of my potential walking routes and my picture, and they were told to just canvass the neighborhood looking for me. And 2 young police officers were out on foot and made the decision to venture down into that patch of trees. If they hadn't have done that, I doubt very much I would be here today. But the officer that spotted me was only 2 years on the force. He's 24 years old. So what an experience for a young man to see. I was, not in a good presentation. I'm not quite sure what to say with that. I don't want to risk anything, but I was unconscious.
What injuries, if you can talk about?
Yeah, well, I had as you can see, I'm wearing braces right now. So my jaw was shattered. I had a fractured skull, a huge fracture on the back of my head. I had fractured ribs, a punctured lung, and basically what ended up happening was the injuries that were done to my face. When they did the emergency surgery, it had to wait a year before I could go back and see what are the next steps. So I need to have a second surgery to correct some misalignments, and in order to do that, I have to wear braces first. So the biggest damage, the most damage done to me was to my face. I have a lot of nerve damage. Like when I talk, you can see this raises, and I've lost the expression lines on my face. The lower half of my face, a lot of nerve damage. I don't really feel it when I talk, so it's a bit odd when I talk. And I've lost a vocal range in my voice, so I can't sing or scream. I've also lost my sense of taste and smell from the brain damage that destroyed my olfactory nerves, I guess. Not quite sure, hoping that comes back. But there's a lot of outcomes and consequences that, I'm stuck living with and adapting to, and really what can I do but accept it and find workarounds. So that's what I'm doing, trying my best.
Tell me about the Kimberly project and how it pushes you.
Sure. Well, the Kimberly project, it has my name, but it was started by my amazing sister-in-law, Catherine Dunphy, who's a strong advocate for women in general. But when she realized that this act of violence became personal when it affected her because she's my family member, she jumped through hoops to put in place a charity, to apply for a charity in Canada. And she got it. She got charitable status for the Kimberly project, and her goals with that are to help put an end to violence against women, to end gender-based violence, basically through education and advocacy, because we're not delusional. It's not like all of a sudden, you know, no one's gonna hurt a woman or even a boy for that matter, but we have to start somewhere, and often education is the best place to start.
How are you now?
How am I now? I always say from the neck down, I'm pretty much back to normal. From the neck up, it's still a work in progress. But mentally, I'm fine. The acquired brain injury, or the traumatic brain injury I experienced, miraculously, I don't really suffer any consequences from the brain injury except for the anosmia, the loss of sense of taste and smell. But I came back from the hospital, was able to defend my master's thesis, and I'm back to work and moving forward. So,
Not that you can go into specifics, but do you remember everything?
all I remember is going for a walk and woke up in the hospital basically 3 weeks later. And my memory for the week before is very sketchy, and my memory for things after have just slowly built back up. There's a big gap of not remembering. And I think sometimes people have the misconception, well, that's why you're okay, because you don't remember. However, I don't remember being attacked and all the terrible things that happened to me. But every single day, when I look in the mirror, when I talk, when I eat, all of the consequences to my life, my income, my social life, my marriage, like, I remember those things every single day, and I still have to deal with those things. So the fact that I don't remember the attack, well, thank goodness I don't, but every day I'm reminded of what happened to me. So I hope that I will never have a flashback. I'm told by professionals that I won't. Apparently my brain didn't register what happened, so I mean, that's a good thing, but we need to move forward and try and figure out how to help people that potentially don't, you know, have that advantage that I did, where I don't remember the attack.
And this happened in Durham?
It happened in Whitby.
This is one of those things, and again, I could be wrong again, but I mean, nice neighborhood.
Beautiful neighborhood. And actually where the attack happened was literally spitting distance from the police station. So I think that was like, how can this possibly happen so close in our neighborhood? It's a lovely neighborhood, lovely.
And that's one of those things that I raised because demographics of it, you know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the income. It doesn't matter where you live, whether high end, low end.
That is correct. You know, it was a random attack, and I think there's some advantages to that in terms of how the neighborhood feels about their immediate surroundings. Like it wasn't like it was someone who was a community member that grew up there and then acted out against another community member. It was a random person who wasn't connected to the community. So you remove that, we have a good, strong community.